In 1989, a woman was raped and beaten so badly, doctors said she lost 3/4 of her blood. Within days, 5 teenagers confessed on camera, in their own words. Detailed, specific, convincing. There was just one problem. None of them did it, not one. They spent between 6 and 13 years in prison for a crime their own mouths admitted to. So here's the question that should terrify you. If 5 innocent teenagers can look a camera in the eye and confess to a brutal crime they never committed, could you? Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you will never trust a confession the same way again. We are taught, from childhood, that a confession is the end of the story. He confessed. Those 2 words feel like a locked door. Case closed. Guilt proven. Juries believe it. Judges believe it. We believe it. Studies show that when a jury hears a confession, it outweighs almost every other form of evidence combined, including eyewitnesses, including alibis, including DNA. But here's the disturbing truth psychologists and legal researchers have uncovered over the last 4 decades. The human mind can be broken, not just physically, not just through torture, through exhaustion, through fear, through hope, through the simple, human desire to make the pain stop. Today, we're going to walk through exactly how innocent people end up confessing to crimes they never committed. The real psychological mechanisms behind it, and the real cases that change the justice system forever. Let's begin. Let's go back to that case I opened with. April 19, 1989. Central Park, New York City. A 28-year-old investment banker was found in the park, barely alive. The attack was so severe, police believed she wouldn't survive the night. That same night, police rounded up a group of Black and Latino teenagers who had been in the park. None of them had any connection to the victim. But over the next 24 to 30 hours, 5 of them confessed. Antron McCray, Kevin Richardson, Yusuf Salam, Raymond Santana, Corey Wise. Some as young as 14 years old. Interrogated for hours, without lawyers, without parents present for most of the questioning. Until they said what detectives wanted to hear. Their confessions didn't even match. Details contradicted each other. Contradicted the crime scene. Contradicted the DNA evidence collected that night. The DNA didn't match a single one of them. But it didn't matter. The confessions were enough. All 5 were convicted. They served between 6 and 13 years. In 2002, a convicted serial rapist named Matias Reyes confessed to the crime, alone. His DNA matched. The Central Park 5 were exonerated. But the years were already gone. Now here's the question that should stop you cold. How does an innocent 14-year-old boy confess to a brutal rape he had nothing to do with? The answer lies in a room. A small room, with no windows. Let's talk about what actually happens inside that room. Most confessions in the developed world are extracted using something called the Reed technique. It was developed in the 1940s and 50s, and for decades it was considered the gold standard of interrogation. Here's how it works. Step 1. The interrogator tells the suspect they already know they're guilty. Not, did you do it? We know you did it. We just need to understand why. Step 2. Minimization and maximization. The detective alternates between 2 roles. One moment, they exaggerate the consequences. This could be the death penalty, this could be life in prison. The next moment, they offer an escape, but if this was self-defense, if it was an accident, if you were provoked, that's a very different story. This creates something psychologists call a false choice. Confess to the sympathetic version and things might go easier. Deny everything, and face the worst possible outcome. Step 3. Isolation and exhaustion. Interrogations can last 6, 8, even 16 hours. No food, no sleep, no lawyer. Researcher Drive, Saul Kassin, one of the leading experts on false confessions, found that the average false confession interrogation in documented wrongful conviction cases lasted over 16 hours. 16 hours. Try staying awake, alert, and rational for 16 hours while someone insists, again and again, that you are guilty. Your brain starts to do something strange. It starts looking for the fastest way out of the room. And sometimes the fastest way out is to just say yes. But here's what's even more disturbing. Sometimes, people don't just confess to escape. Sometimes they actually start to believe they did it. Psychologists classify false confessions into 3 distinct categories. Understanding these changes everything about how you see the justice system. Type 1. Voluntary false confessions. These happen with no pressure from police at all. People confess to crimes for attention, for fame, to protect someone else, or because of mental illness. The most famous example, the Lindbergh baby kidnapping in 1932. Over 200 people voluntarily confessed to a crime they had nothing to do with. Type 2. Coerced compliant confessions. This is the Central Park 5. The suspect knows they're innocent. But the pressure, the exhaustion, the promise of relief becomes so overwhelming they confess anyway, just to end the interrogation. They plan to recant later. Often, it's too late. Type 3. And this is the one that should genuinely disturb you. Coerced internalized false confessions. This is when an innocent person, under extreme psychological pressure, actually begins to believe they committed the crime. Not lying, not performing, believing it. In 1988, a sheriff's deputy named Paul Ingram from Washington state was accused by his own daughters of horrific abuse. He denied it, repeatedly, genuinely, but investigators pressured him for months. They told him memory repression was real, that abusers often blocked out their own crimes. They asked him to close his eyes and try to remember. Slowly he did. He began producing detailed confessions. Elaborate, disturbing, specific. Psychologist Richard Ofshe grew suspicious. So he ran a test. He invented a completely fake accusation, that Ingram had forced his own children into a sexual act that never happened, that Ofshe made up entirely. He asked Ingram to remember it the same way. Within days Ingram produced a detailed, confident confession to a crime that was scientifically, provably, impossible. Because it never existed, Ofshe had invented it from nothing. This is the terrifying edge of human memory. Under the right conditions, of stress, suggestion, and authority, the mind doesn't just lie to others. It can lie to itself. So why does this happen? What is actually going on in the brain? Researchers point to a few key psychological principles. First, humans are wired to trust authority. From childhood, we're conditioned to believe that people in positions of power, police, doctors, teachers, generally act in good faith. When a detective says, "We have evidence," most people assume that must be true. Second, the brain under extreme stress prioritizes short-term relief over long-term consequences. This is basic survival wiring. The part of your brain responsible for weighing 13 years in prison against this interrogation ending right now is not functioning normally after 10 hours without food, sleep, or contact with the outside world. Third, young people and people with intellectual disabilities are disproportionately vulnerable. According to the Innocence Project, of the first 375 DNA exonerations in the United States, roughly 29% involved a false confession. Of those, a striking number involved juveniles or individuals with cognitive impairments. Their brains are simply less equipped to withstand hours of coordinated psychological pressure from trained adults. The system is changing. 1330 to 1430. Here's some genuine hope in this story. Because of cases like the Central Park 5, the system is slowly changing. Many police departments have moved away from the traditional read technique toward a method called PEACE, preparation, engage, account, closure, evaluate, developed in the UK. It focuses on gathering information, not extracting confessions. Mandatory recording of interrogations is now required in many US states. Time limits on interrogations are being introduced. And the Innocence Project continues to use DNA evidence to free the wrongfully convicted, many of them convicted on nothing more than their own words. Progress is slow, but it's real. So the next time you hear that someone confessed, remember Antron, Kevin, Yusuf, Raymond, and Corey. Remember Paul Ingram, confessing to a crime that was invented from nothing. A confession is not the end of a story. It's a piece of evidence produced by a human mind under conditions that can break almost anyone. Because the most unsettling truth in all of criminal justice isn't that people lie. It's that under the right pressure, the human mind will confess to anything, just to make it stop. If this video opened your eyes, subscribe, because next time, we're going deeper into the darkest interrogation rooms in history. I'll see you in the next one.